So good to see you. This is Miss Hayes, your literature teacher, here to talk to you a little bit about artistic merit in literature, what it is, why it matters, and how to explain it to others so that when you say this work of literature is really excellent, very artistic, you can explain yourself clearly and hopefully persuade other people to agree. So let's get into the what of it. I've got the definition here on the screen. You can see what it says. But you can also say that artistic merit is what gives a work of literature immortality. It's what makes the words come to life and live within you, not just the one time you read it and then you forgot all about it, but the scenes, the images, the ideas, the words that you just keep coming back to are signs that there's artistic merit in the work. Now, I'm going to encourage you to use all 6 of your senses because a lot of times when people talk about artistic merit in literature, they're primarily thinking visual. And so they start talking about how, oh, I could see it. It was like I was in a movie. And that's kind of basic, low level. We'll talk more about how to explain what you saw and what it looked like to you later. But you want to also go beyond just, oh, I could see it, I could visualize it, and also use your other 5 or 6 senses. So think about any ways that the words created sound patterns that you could hear. Did you feel like you could hear leaves crunching underfoot? Did you feel like you could hear the sounds that were taking place? Or in the case of a poem or a song or even a speech, do you feel like there were patterns of rhyme or similar sounds or even the pacing, the speed or the slowness or the pauses appealed to you, drew you in, helped you feel the drama? And of course, there's also, were there parts where you felt like you could touch, you could feel on your skin what was being described or what was in the piece? Do you feel like you could taste what people were eating, smell the smells in the air? All those are signs that the author is making the words leap off the page, or even if it's a movie, the images come out of the screen and into your being and live within you. Now, I kind of hinted at this before, but you can look for artistic merit in every kind of work of literature, not just books, stories, novels, or poetry, or songs, but also in speeches, nonfiction, autobiographies. All of these things can be artistically written because it's not so much what you say, but how you say it. So let's talk a little bit about why artistic merit matters. I'm going to start at your far right with the blue square with the smiley face there. The simplest reason is because when literature is well written, when it's well done with care, then it's more enjoyable. And it also is more enriching to you as the reader. You walk away with more memories of it. But then if we go to the middle, it also helps us connect to ourselves, our own inner worlds and feelings. It helps us build empathy and connect to the other people. For example, the characters in the story, or if it's nonfiction, the people that this speech or that this event really happened to. So it brings us out of ourselves, it brings us out of narcissism and selfishness and out of the world, but it also helps us dive deeper into understanding our own selves and feeling our own feelings so that we're fully alive instead of just going through life like robots. And then last but not least, if you go to your far left, the little pink square with the gears in the person's head, really good writing shows us the possibilities for how we can express ourselves. It shows us how we can put words together in a beautiful way and how writing and reading don't have to be a chore. So let's get into how to explain your view of artistic merit to other people, because I do want to note this is very subjective. Some people will have a very different view of what's artistically good than others. I put it like this when it comes to movies. Some people, they love Fast and Furious movies. They need explosions and people driving cars out of aircraft carriers and all kinds of big boom boom action. And that gets them going and sticks with them. For some people, they prefer like a slow burn, a mystery. They prefer to wonder what's going to happen and then see how it all comes together. So this is all going to be from your subjective point of view, but that doesn't mean that you can't explain why you think what you think. So you're going to need 3 ingredients you can see on the screen. The first is quotes, specific quotes from the text that you read or the movie that you watched or the song that you listened to. And those need to be things that honestly grabbed you. So the things that stick in your mind and you keep coming back to. If you don't have any of those, then maybe that's a sign that for you, it's not that much artistic merit. But notice I have a little star here. That's because that means you need to cite those by the page number, the line number, the timestamp. In addition to the quotes, you need to tie those quotes to a technique that other people can look up. So that's going to be a literary term or a literary writing strategy that the author used that is a form of creativity, right? It's what makes it artistic. So I have a few examples on the screen: personification, stream of consciousness, imagery. There's anaphora. I'll give you a quick example. So anaphora is when every line of or every sentence of a poem, speech, or story starts the same way. There are very many famous examples of works of literature that use anaphora. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech uses anaphora. Almost every sentence starts with I have a dream, right? So that is a technique. And if you had a specific quote, I have a dream that, and then finish a sentence, then you would tie those two together. Why do we use the techniques? That's what helps you explain that the person is being an artist and helps you be a little bit more eloquent with your explanation. But then the last thing you need is the effect. How that quote, which used that technique, affected you. Now that could be emotionally, mentally, or physically, because sometimes when we read something or even watch something, it can have a physical effect on you, positive or negative. So here's a quick example on the screen. This is from a short story by Flannery O'Connor called A Good Man is Hard to Find, which if you're in the American literature class, you're going to read and you'll see that the title is a little bit misleading. But in any case, this is a short story where there's a serial killer called the Misfit, and he kills a whole family, grandmother, her son, the son's wife, the 2 kids. I think he even kills their cat at the end of this journey that they're taking to go from, I believe, Georgia to Florida. So this example of explaining the artistic merit of just one part of that story says, when the Misfit says, quote, she would have been a good woman if it had been somebody there to shoot her every minute of her life. And then that's on page 13 of the story. The irony of a serial killer judging a grandmother was chilling, according to the student. I felt terrible about agreeing with him and decided to be less judgmental. Now, if we look through this, we can see all 3 ingredients of the explanation, right? We have the quote from the story. When the Misfit says she would have been a good woman if it had been somebody there to shoot her every minute of her life. And then we have the citation with the page number. We have the technique. What's the technique? Irony. And we have a little bit of an explanation of how that quote uses irony, right? It's saying he's a serial killer and he's saying that this grandmother is a bad person. That's unexpected. That's unironic. Excuse me, not unironic, ironic. And then we have the effect of how that quote using that technique impacted that student. That they felt bad about being like, yeah, I kind of don't like the grandma. Ooh, did I just root for a grandmother to get shot? And then the student deciding to be less judgmental. Now that, of course, is what you might type in a paper or what you might say out loud in a presentation. And that's the kind of notes that you need to take. Jot down, copy down quotes that really grab you and stick with you. Look up in a dictionary or a glossary of literary terms, which should be included in your course materials, what techniques are being used in that quote. And then jot down some notes about how it affected you. And that should help you be able to complete your midterm and end of course assignments. Now, if you have any questions or comments, of course, just leave them in the comments section. Otherwise, thank you so much. I'll see you next time.